Hello, I'm Miss Shaw with Your Favourite Teacher, and today I'm going to be walking you through a Language Paper 1 in preparation for the AQA paper on Tuesday the 5th of June in the morning. So I'm going to walk you through the November 2017 exam, which uses the source Labyrinth by Kate Moss, written in 2005, and you can find this on the AQA website under English Language GCSE, then past papers and mark schemes. So, firstly, when you're in the exam on Tuesday morning, you need to make sure you sit, read through the questions, and then read through the source all the way through so that you can start to pick up on different things that might be of use when answering the question. I know it's really tempting to get question 1 out the way, but I would advise that you read the whole source first before answering question 1. Speaking of question 1, this is the nice and easy one. List 4 things about Alice and her surroundings. So obviously on Tuesday it will be list 4 things about a character or the setting or something to do with the first part of that source. This question is in 2 parts, so it's asking for 4 things about Alice and her surroundings. So you could go for 2 of each. You need to make sure that you write in full sentences or you won't get the marks. So it needs to be something like Alice is drinking her water. It's warm where Alice is. The heat haze has shimmered above the dented tarmac. Okay, so as long as it's in a full sentence, you will get the mark, but just make sure that you write in the full sentence. And also, please make sure that you draw a line so as not to pick information from after that line. Now, I know that's a really silly thing to say, but I have had students in the past that pick something that's past the specified line number, and they don't end up getting the marks. And it's just a really easy question to get 4 out of 4 on. So, moving straight on to question 2. This is the one where they reprint the part of the extract that you need at the top of the question, which is nice. So this one is, how does the writer use language to describe the mountain area? And it is 8 marks. So let me just get it up in front of me. I would focus more so on the first 2 bullet points, so words and phrases and language features and techniques. The reason I'm saying to stay away from sentence forms is because unless you have this amazing interpretation of how the complex sentence reflects the weather in the background and stuff like that, you're really not going to pick up on that many marks. So it's best to just focus on the words and phrases and the language features and techniques as well. So I would try to pick out about 3 quotes and really pick them apart, because you're being marked on your ability to analyse a writer's word and feature choice. Okay, so make sure that you really pick it apart as you go along. For example, you could pick out in the winter the jagged peaks of the mountains are covered with snow, so you could pick out the verb jagged. And you could talk about how jagged has connotations of something that's very sharp and dangerous, which suggests that the mountain area is dangerous. And don't forget your effect on the reader, so making sure that you kind of link it back to that. So if you're looking at the jagged peaks, you could say that this creates a sense of danger, which would make the reader question why someone might be there, for example. You've also got a little bit later on, in the spring, delicate flowers of pink and mauve and white peep out from their hiding places. So you've got some personification there as well. The more you can pick out the terminology, the better. Just make sure that you obviously give the effect on the reader as well. So the flowers peep out of their hiding places, which shows that the mountain area is quite mysterious. They're peeping out, almost like hide and seek. Things like that will get you extra marks in an exam situation. Okay, it's really important not to forget effect on the reader, and just try to make your comments full of something rather than empty. So if you just say this makes the reader want to read on, then you're not going to get as many marks. If you say this makes the reader want to read on because the mountain area is very mysterious in this section, it just gives you a little bit more leverage for the examiners to give you the marks. Okay, I will go through timings and how many paragraphs you should write for each question, but I'm just going to skip forward to question 3. So question 3 is exactly the same every time. How does the writer use structure to I said it wrong. How has the writer structured the text to interest you as a reader? It's exactly the same every single time. Now, please be aware that the examiners aren't testing your ability to pick apart quotes. They aren't testing your ability to identify language features. That was question 2. They are looking for where the writer focuses our attention, and that focus is mainly character, action, or setting. They are not looking for sentence forms or punctuation. That's all now part of question 2. I know that sentence forms and punctuation is a structural feature, but apparently not for AQA anymore, okay? So focus on character, action and setting. I would look at kind of beginning, middle and end, and look at where the focus changes. So that first paragraph, Alice unscrews the top of her water bottle. Immediately it focuses our attention on character, okay? It's an individual character, not a group. So what do we find out about Alice? Not that much. We know that she's thirsty, so she's clearly in a hot place, but that's all we know. So the reader questions, who is Alice? What is she like? Why is she there? All of those things are effect on the reader and will get you the marks. Then look at how that kind of shifts, how that focus shifts. It shifts in the second paragraph to the setting. Okay, it's external setting, not internal. So we find out more about where she is. This is the paragraph that you have for question 2. So what imagery is being created there? It's a mysterious tone because still we don't know why she's there. Obviously you have the box at the top that says she's volunteered to help on an archaeological dig, but you don't really get that much information. It's mysterious for the reader. It's kind of almost full of suspense. They want to know why she's there. And then just keep going through. How does that focus kind of change? Make sure you look out for flashbacks and flash forwards. So in this source, there's actually a flash forward. Let me just scroll down so I can find it. On the second page of the source, line 34, it says, in the days and weeks to come, Alice will look back at this moment. So there's a flash forward saying that this moment, what she's doing here, is important because it's going to affect the rest of her life. And that's important for the reader because, again, why is it important? Why is it going to change her life? Why is it such a life-changing moment? What's happened? So all of those questions really help you to answer this question. I would say in terms of like PEE and stuff like that, I'd actually go for a feel paragraph. So you state the focus. The opening of the source focuses our attention on the character. Then you give your evidence. Alice was drinking the water bottle. I don't have it in front of me anymore. Don't know what it was, but something about Alice drinking her water. Then you give the effect. Okay, so what we kind of find out, what we question as a reader. Does it make us like her at this point or dislike her? Do we not have enough information? What would we want to find out about her? All of those questions make up your effect on the reader. And then you give a link at the end. Okay, so the focus then changes to setting in the second paragraph. And then you go on to your second analytical paragraph. So that's a feel paragraph. Focus, evidence, effect and link. And I think that's a really good way to try and pick up as much marks as possible and not to kind of give you any room to shy away from structure and start talking about language as well. So that would be how I would personally approach question 3. So moving on to question 4, remember I will let you know timings and how many paragraphs at the end of the podcast. So question 4, this is your biggest mark question on section A. So they give you a statement from a student or a teacher or someone that AQA's made up, and they always give you to what extent do you agree. So this one is, this part of the story where Alice continues to dig for the object is very mysterious and suggests her discovery may be life-changing. To what extent do you agree? So the first thing you need to do for this question is pick out the emotive word or words from the statement, because that's what you're going to link everything back to. So in this case, we've got mysterious and life-changing. Okay, so two different words, two different emotive words, that you're going to link everything back to. Okay, in terms of structure, this is very similar to question 2, so it's just language analysis again, but this time round it's asking you to what extent do you agree. So you need to have I in there, you need to give an opinion. Now, teenagers are the most opinionated people in the world, so you have an opinion, you really need to make that clear. Things like, I agree with this statement because on line 35 it says this, or it is clear here on line 40 that mystery is created because of, things like that. So I agree, it is clear here. You can disagree with this statement, but if it's telling you to what extent you agree, that is the indicator that the exam board is saying there is something in this passage that you can agree with, so make sure you agree. Students that are trying to go for the kind of top marks, then yes, it is good to have a disagree paragraph, but if you really can't get one in there, honestly, don't worry about it. It's not the end of the world. Don't forget effect on the reader for this one. So just like question 2, question 3, what does it create a sense of? What tone is created? Obviously, everything needs to be linked back to mystery and life-changing in this case. So just everything linking the reader back to feeling a sense of mystery, or feeling that her discovery is life-changing. Okay. Also, for this question, even though it's 20 marks, I would say quality, not quantity. I know the exam board give you like a million pages to fill in. Don't feel like you have to fill the whole space. You can get away with less paragraphs and make them detailed, and you can still come out with quite high marks for this question. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the reading section. Sorry, very, very quick there, but it gives you an overview of kind of how you should be approaching the reading section of this exam. So I'm just going to quickly go through question 5 with you guys, the creative writing section, and then I'll give you my overall top tips at the end, which includes how many paragraphs you should write, timings and things like that. Okay, so question 5 is the one where you get 2 different tasks, so you can choose between describing the picture or to write a narrative usually. So actually, let me get it back up. This paper from November, the exam board actually gave you 2 narrative tasks. Now it could well happen on Tuesday, but we don't know. So, oh god, my mouse is taking ages to scroll. I've lost it. There it is. So this one was write a story set in a mountainous area as suggested by the picture, or write a story with the title Discovery. Okay, so you may well get 2 different narrative tasks or 2 different descriptive tasks, so just be aware of that. But 9 times out of 10 you will get describe the picture or write a story, or the opening to a story. So firstly, if you choose the picture, I would personally draw 5 or 6 boxes on that picture that you're going to focus on in your description. So it just helps you to kind of zoom in on particular parts of the picture rather than just describing the whole thing, because you'll find if you just describe the whole thing, you've written 2 paragraphs and you don't know where else to go with it. So if you've got different boxes, different areas of focus, it will give you more to write about. Okay, and then how you actually use that is you switch between the object in the box and the 5 senses. So you'd give an overall paragraph about what you can see. Then you might zoom in this case, the picture in front of me, zoom in on the clouds. They look very ominous, very foreboding. Then you zoom back out and then talk about what you can hear. Then you zoom back in, pick up on the lake, for example, that's in front of me. And then you go back out. What might you be able to smell if you're there? So you kind of switch between sight, an object, sound another object, smell another object. It just gives you more of a focus and helps you to develop your writing a lot more for the picture description option. Now, if you choose to write a narrative, I would go for choosing an emotion and starting with that. So, for example, this one, write a story set in a mountainous area, as suggested by this picture. There's a boy, might be a girl, or be gender neutral, but there's a person sat on the pier looking out. You can't see them, they've got a hood up, and to me they look quite lonely. Okay, so I would use lonely as my emotion. Now, if lonely were a colour, what would it be? I would say probably a dark blue. I wouldn't go for black because I associate the colour black with being depressed and death and horrible stuff. So I'd go for like a dark blue, a navy blue. And I would describe something using that colour. If lonely were a weather, what would it be? I would go for it raining or it being very cold, because if it's, thundering and lightning, I associate that with anger, for example. So yeah, it kind of depends what emotion you're going to kind of pick out, and then use things like that. So if lonely were the colour, the weather, an item of clothing, a tree, I'd go for a what are those ones called? A weeping willow, or have I got that from Harry Potter? No, that's the Whomping Willow. I'd say lonely was a weeping willow, because if you're lonely, you're normally quite sad. But yeah, different things like that will really help to kind of develop your writing. And I also got, this was advice, I can't remember who gave me this advice, but take your reader on a journey from lonely to happy, for example. So start off with one emotion and change it, because then you're using structural devices to change the tone of your piece from one emotion to another. And again, that will get you really high marks. In terms of how much you should write for question 5, it is 40 marks, so 24 for content and 16 for accuracy. So I would go for 2 pages. Again, less is more, quality not quantity. 2 pages, vary paragraph lengths, okay? So you will get obviously the picture, the 2 tasks, and then you'll get, about 3, 4, 5 lines underneath. Use that for planning. Use that bit for planning, and then turn the page, and then you've got 2 pages, the double page, to write your story. Please, please, please make sure you write something down to plan it, a word bank, your DeForest or A-Forest or whatever your school teach you. Make sure you've got the different punctuation points or marks, to remind yourself some form of planning, because if you do run out of time in this exam, the exam board can give you marks based on your plan. So you might not finish your story, but they know where you're going with it, so they can give you a couple of extra marks, and that could be the difference between a 3 and a 4 or a 4 and a 5, for example. Please make sure you vary your punctuation, even if you don't think it's right. It literally says in the mark scheme, I think it's level 3, off the top of my head, AQA, don't kill me if I've got this wrong, but range of punctuation used, mostly with success. Now that's telling me that you don't have to get that right, you've just got to get that punctuation in there. So whack in a semicolon, add your brackets, do some dashes. It doesn't have to be right, but you've got to show that you're attempting to use it, okay? And also, give yourself time to edit. Please, please, please edit your work, especially for question 5. I'm talking go back through, cross out the rubbish adjectives. If you've used like good, it was a good day. No, cross that out. It was an amazing day. It was an incredible day. You're showing the examiner that you know how to edit your work and how to make it better. And again, it gives you extra marks. So don't forget to read back through, cross things out, add extra things in. Don't forget your language features either. And also use the source to help you. The source is always linked to question 5. Ow, I just hit my hand. The source is always linked to your question 5. So use the source. Use the good vocabulary. Don't steal a whole sentence, because the exam board will realise. But obviously use the good vocabulary. Use the structure of the source. One of my students a couple of years ago, the source the source was like, it was a cold grey day in November, so he flipped it and did, it was a bright sunny day in June or July. Use the source, use the structure to help you. Okay, so that takes me to the end of a quick walkthrough of the paper. I'm trying to make it as quick as possible, so as not to bore you all with my voice, but just to give you my overall top tips, and this is timings, etc. So if I start with timings, I'd say take 15 minutes to read through the source, read the questions, and give yourself time to go back through your answers at the end, okay? So 5 minutes for question 1, you'll probably get it done quicker than 5 minutes, but 5 minutes for question 2, about 15 minutes including picking out quotes, both for questions 2 and 3 because they're 8 marks each, and then give yourself about 25 minutes for question 4 because obviously that's your 20 mark question. I'd say about 30 minutes for question 5. I know it advises 45, but you need to obviously give yourself that extra 15 minutes that you would have picked up for reading the source through once, and making sure that you've gone back and you've edited your answers, particularly question 5. Okay, it's 40 marks. Last year the grade boundaries, you only needed 35 marks to get a C, to get a 4. So you know, if you get a really good question 5, you're well on your way to that 4 or higher. So in terms of paragraphs, I would say, obviously question 1 you just write 4 things. Questions 2 and 3, I'd go for 2 to 3 paragraphs. If you're quite slow and you're worried about timings, go for 2 paragraphs, then come back and add a third in if you've got time. For question 4, like I said before, quality not quantity, so I would go for about 4 paragraphs for question 4. Okay, if you can get more, obviously write more, but try and aim for about 4 paragraphs for question 4 and you can still get good marks. And then for question 5, as I said, 2 pages. Make sure it's not 2 continuous pages and you've got paragraphs in there, and also make sure that your paragraphs are varied in length. No one opens a book and wants to see 10 paragraphs across 2 pages, all 5 lines long. It's boring. Make sure you vary that paragraph length. Look at question 5 and jot down your initial thoughts losing the will to live here. First, like right at the start of the exam, because you know, when you're halfway through and you've just finished 4 analytical questions, you get to question 5 and your creativity is gone. It's zapped. You're bored. You want to finish the exam. You're hungry. You're thinking about breakfast. I hope you've already eaten breakfast before, but you're thinking about breakfast and stuff like that. If you've jotted down some initial thoughts on question 5, what you're going to do with it, then it's not starting new. You've already got some ideas down and it kind of gives you that boost, that refresh to get through that final question. Okay, so I would definitely advise that. And as I said, use the source to help you with your question 5. Please read the source through once completely at the start of that exam. You could use that time to annotate for question 3, character, action and setting, where the main focus is. But obviously for question 3, make sure you zoom in, is it an individual character or a group? But don't do that until you actually get there. So that first thing, read the questions, read through the source. Yeah, and as you're reading the source, you can kind of jot down where the focus changes. Think of question 3 like a movie. If this were on the big screen, what would the camera be zooming in and out of, because that's your focus. Okay, I really hope that these tips have helped. If you need any more help, please don't hesitate to follow me on Instagram. It's just Charlene Shaw _. Send me a message and I'll be happy to help you out between now and Tuesday. Good luck for Tuesday morning. This is Miss Shaw with your favourite teacher, and I hope you found this useful. Have a lovely day.